Good morning. It's early morning here. The sun isn't even up yet. So my voice might be a little froggy. But yesterday I mentioned on Facebook about a health journal that I keep, and I had a few questions about that. So I don't have so much time anymore to write things out. Writing stuff out can take a long time. So I'm starting to try to put stuff into video, and this is one of the things I'll try to do here, is answer some of these questions about a health journal. So I have journaled, boy, most of my life. I find a journal a very introspective process and a self-awareness exercise. No matter what I'm journaling about, it helps me find clarity and new freedoms going forward. It helps me to become more self-aware. So now a journal, I don't do a journal today. It's not really a record of what I do, or in a case of a health journal, it's not even a record of what I've eaten, although it could include that if I wanted to track it. But for me, it's more of a processing of, why am I eating what I'm eating? Why am I avoiding exercise? Because I'm not a big exercise person. Why did I do that thing or have that thing? Eating is never, food is never about food. It's usually about all these other things going on for us. It's about self-belief. It's about maybe being overwhelmed or stressed, and we treat it with food. It can be about feeling unloved, and so we comfort ourselves with food. It could be about any number of things. And in order to move forward in health, which is more than food, but boy, food's a big part of that, we want to become increasingly aware of our patterns and our habits and sort of what we're doing and why we're doing it, or why we're not doing things. So this is how I use a health journal. I also have a journal for money, actually. The money journal I began because there's an expansiveness of new money strengths, actually, that I haven't had to walk in before, and I'm beginning to walk in now. And so I actually wanted to process into abundance, like process into sufficiency, so that I could journey with it well, actually journey with money well. So the health journal is sort of the same thing. I've been doing pretty good with my health, and when I say that, for instance, what I mean is, for the last 10 years I've been intentionally trying to reduce stress in my life. 10 years ago my hair, for instance, was really, really thin, and I was almost on bed rest with fibromyalgia, and things were pretty bad, and I knew it was stress. I was carrying pain in my body that wasn't mine to carry, and I just wasn't processing things well. But what I mean is, I was carrying other people's stress and being responsible for other people's emotions, and oh my gosh, what a mess. So I've been intentionally working for quite a few years to combat that and be healthier, and actually intentionally reduce the stress in my life. And so now, a decade later, I'm actually in a pretty good place. I'm almost at my ideal weight, although Christmas kind of threw me off on that. I think I had cookies for breakfast, lunch, and supper one day last week. But I'm doing pretty good. I'm almost at my ideal weight, almost at my ideal size, according to my doctor, right? According to height and weight stuff. So that's doing pretty good. My eating is not too bad. I've really found a way of eating food in a way that satisfies me, that I'm not hungry. But again, beneath the food, it's never about the food. So for myself, I know what to do. I know what exercises are good for me. I know what my body needs in terms of stretching and strengthening. I know what to eat and what not to eat. I know when to eat. I know all these things I know the pieces of, and yet I still don't always do it. So why am I not always doing it? And so this is why I began a health journal, partly because I also want to focus on my health more. I actually want to be intentional about my health. I've been intentional about every other part of my life for a very long time. And again, some intentional with my health, but I wanted to become even more intentional because I don't want to sort of yo-yo in any way. And I have done a bit of yo-yoing. I'll notice of course, part of that is because of the traveling work that I do. So I'll end up in a country and my eating's a bit different, and then my skin is saggy because I've lost a few pounds, and then I'll travel to another place and then I gain a few pounds, and then I'm always kind of going back and forth, and I don't really like that. I want to just be settled sort of in my own frame with a consistency that comes from within me that spans no matter where I am in the world, or whether I'm on rest mode or whether I'm on active ministry mode. So that's part of why I began a health journal. Now, the health journal I've only begun about a month ago, and I actually haven't done a lot of stuff in it. Although in my journals over the years, I've always jotted about health as well. But I began this very specific, one book just for health. Now, there's a lot of things we can do with a health journal. The question that was asked was, is there any format? Well, yes and no. The one thing that we do not want to do in any journaling is make promises, because the minute we make a promise, part of what brain science tells us, and this is something that I learned in my coach training, is that when we make a promise, or when we see the end result as though it's already happened, right? Like, okay, I'm going to, New Year's always has these big things. I'm going to lose 20 pounds this year. And then what happens though in our brain when we do that is, we're feeling the emotions of that. We're hearing the applause of people. We're patting ourselves on the back, and it won't happen because our brain thinks it's already been achieved, because we're feeling it, we're seeing it, it's like we're breathing it, we can smell it. And well, now we can just relax because the brain can't tell the difference between what's imagined and what's real. All the signals to the brain are the same when we take something on in this actively feeling it kind of way. So we don't ever in our journals or in our New Year's resolutions want to say, this is what I'm going to do. And then we'll post it on Facebook and people go, yay, that's great. And then nothing happens. And it's because we've put the cart before the horse, and we've imagine that it's already accomplished, when in fact nothing's been accomplished. So we don't want to do that. That's the one rule not to do in a journal. I don't know that there's any other rule or any other principle, but that would be a main one. We don't speak what is going to be before it is, but at least not in the way I just described. But one thing that we can do, so there's a few things we can do. There are some sort of visioning exercises that we can use, but we have to do it in a certain way with our framework. We can, with the framework of our words, right? We can ask ourselves questions. I ask myself questions all the time. For me, it works in writing to ask questions. I'm tactile. I learn through visual, through my eyes. I don't really learn audit through my ears. So when I write something, it connects everything within me a little bit better, and sort of answers flow and understanding flows. Now that wouldn't be the same for everybody. Some people would journal better through painting, or maybe through dance, or through heavy exercise, right? Some people are really wired for running, for instance, I'm not. Some people are really wired for more muscle activity. So you do have to know yourself and how you best sort of process and come to clarity and wisdom on things. For me, it's always been writing. So that's why I use writing, a book, a journal. So we want to explore, basically. And what we want to come into touch with is, again, what's going on inside us. Because again, food is never about food. It's either social things. Sometimes we're social eaters. I'm quite a social eater. What that means is that my priority of health, or what's good for me, tends to come after a priority of connecting with people. So now, this is lovely in one way. I enter in, I sit with people, I drink lots of chai, I gladly eat what they've prepared for me. But when the amount of that, or usually the amount, interferes with my own health, then I've got a bit of a conundrum going on, and I have to actually process through and start to ask myself, so where's the boundary lines here, and how can I navigate sitting and visiting and being with people and eating with them with my body's need for health, right? So that's been a bit of a trick for me. But again, writing and processing that out and thinking through where to make that boundary line, and then also asking myself, well, Cyndy, why would you subvert your own health every single time, every day, in order to keep other people happy with what they're serving you? Now, this is a particular situation with my own life. Most people aren't in other people's homes every day, but often I am when I'm on ministry work. And even when I'm not actively overseas, I'm still with people and with family and visiting and, sitting with my daughter watching TV or sitting over a cup of tea with another daughter, or having lunch with my sons, right? There's always these social times of eating, and so it's good to figure out how to do those times and still keep our own health uppermost. What I've come to realize is really the only gift I can give myself is the gift of health. And for me, that means freedom of movement. It means being neat and tidy. Like, I've always liked neat and tidy. So I like my body to be neat and tidy. Just so that I don't feel like I'm overflowing sort of my clothes. It makes me feel kind of gross, and I don't like the way my clothes feel on me then. Things like this. So again, we can use a journal to define some of this. Like, what's health really about? What would health look like for you in terms of the movement and physical freedom of your body, in terms of the kind of foods you're eating, in terms of when you're with people, how will you eat when you're with other people? Like, what parts do you stick to in terms of your own priorities, and which parts do you enter into their priorities? Because that's can be important as well. So some of these things are the ways what a health journal can do. For me, journaling has always been about catching the emotion. So if I have a notebook that I kind of have on hand and I keep it close to me, then when I notice a certain emotional response to something coming up, I can begin to jot it. Otherwise, emotions pass us by really quickly. They kind of come, they're there, and then if we even try to recreate it 20 minutes later, it's almost too late. Or certainly an hour or two later, it's too late to process it and to catch it. But the emotions tell us things. They're incredibly important to us in terms of information about ourselves and about what's going on inside us. So that's a big part of my own goal of journaling, is to catch emotion, because then I can begin to see what's below the surface of my actions. Because again, health isn't even so much about what we're doing or not doing. It starts with, well, who are we? What are we believing about ourselves? What are the false conclusions that we've taken on about who we are over the years? Like, what are we still living out? I'm a inner healing prayer minister. I'm also been trained as a leadership coach. So I'm not a counselor, but I am an inner healing prayer minister and a leadership coach. And so within these two disciplines, For one, I've learned to listen on a really deep level to, again, either what's not being said, what's the subtitle of something, what's the emotion below the surface. I'll watch my own body language and notice it and go, oh, what was that about, Cyndy? That was something there, right? So when I journal, then I can kind of process that stuff or ask myself questions about it and get bigger clarity. So let me give you an example. There are some tools and sort of different frameworks that can be used, but I think I'll save that for another video. I want to do this video just sort of as an overview. So let me give you an overview example of one of my entries that I did just even a month ago. Okay, this is what I wrote. I can feel rebelliousness in my spirit, as though I do not want to be responsible to good eating, health, and exercise. So now this came out of I've set everything in place to be healthier, to actually just spend 20 minutes a day to exercise. And it is the hardest thing to make myself do. It's just very, very crazily difficult. Like, it's way too difficult. I don't know why it would be this difficult. So this is what I was writing. I can feel rebelliousness in my spirit, as though I do not want to be responsible to good eating, health, and exercise. This place with myself, I want to cheat. Why is this so? In every other part of my life, I bring my A game. Why not with myself? Why would I want to cheat myself? And then to my spirit came this thought. Now, in my experience, this would be the Holy Spirit giving me insight here. So I've written it in my journal in quotation marks. Whenever I sense that God is saying something to me or giving me an insight, then I'll write it in quotation marks that, okay, the Lord is speaking to me here. So this is what I wrote as the answer. I had to ask the question, why would I want to cheat myself? And here's what I sensed in my spirit. Because you have been cheated. Cheated of affection, of deep regard, and of love. And then my response to this, what I wrote was, wow, okay, so to no longer cheat myself, here's what I would need to do. 1, I come out of agreement with cheating and being cheated. No more. I'm not going to participate with that. That sort of thing that's been over me, or that I feel has been over me. 2, love myself. And of course, what would that mean? But that's what I wrote down here. And then 3, to grieve the cheating done unto me. So now I want to say, like, this process, or even what I wrote here, doesn't mean I've never been loved. You have to understand that, right? It doesn't mean everybody cheats me, right? But what it does mean, this sort of processing or this sort of revelation, it means that deep in my spirit somewhere, I've still been carrying around, you could say, a false conclusion or an assignment against me that I'm being cheated, or that others have cheated me. And there have been people who have cheated me of affection and regard and of love. Like, that is accurate. It doesn't mean everybody does. But it's been a part of it has been a part of my journey. Yeah, for instance, I was raped as a child. So, a lot of things go back to sexual abuse in terms of our eating. So this doesn't surprise me when I wrote this, although I hadn't seen it this clearly, right? So now what I can do with this, when I come to a revelation and I realize, okay, so I'm cheating myself because I've been cheated. Well, then all of a sudden I take those emotions and that knot, right? It's like a knot within our being. And we can take it out and we can look at it. Well, that doesn't make sense. Like my agreeing to continue cheating of myself doesn't make sense. Why would I do that? That's not working for me. So I can come out of agreement with that. Now, as an inner healing prayer minister, I would do it in prayer as this prayer process that the Lord has taught me over the years. It would be, God, I come before you today in the name and the blood of my Lord Jesus Christ. And God, I confess that I've been cheating myself. I've agreed with this assignment against me, this curse over me of being cheated, being robbed of stuff. And I realize that I'm cheating myself in my lack of stretching every day, in my, the fact that I don't want to do these things. In the core of me reveals that I'm still in agreement with this being cheated, because I'm cheating myself now. So I don't want to do this anymore. And so I renounce this cheating of myself in the name of Jesus. I say no more. I come out of agreement with it. And then there's more of a prayer process. And I'll teach that in another video as well, because it would be a little bit, that's kind of a whole other subject. But because I'm an inner healing prayer minister, then I would actually process it through prayer like that. And basically break that agreement. Say, I am no longer going to agree with cheating myself. And I cancel that thing against me. Because you know what happens, we've all had experiences, and we've all had troubles, and we've all had difficulties, and for some of us we've had traumas and tragedies as well. And what happens is that we will often, from these events, take on conclusions, false conclusions, and then they drive our behavior, because we're intent to maintain the narrative that we took on, right? There's a story. So if the story in my mind is, well, I've always been cheated, so I'm going to keep cheating myself. Now again, that's at a very deep level. I didn't actually know that until I wrote this out. So again, part of the journaling process is we can sort of have these things revealed to us. We can open up closets and trunks and cupboards, and we can begin to see what's inside and what's below the level of our action. What's below the emotional responses that we have. Why are we avoiding things, or why are we doing things the way we're doing them? So it gives a lot of just clarity and self-awareness, and then we can take that awareness and we can do something about it, and we can create a different narrative. We can change the story in terms of ourselves in relation to anything, but in topic of today, in relation to our health, and in relation to our health, our sleeping, in relation to our stress, and our eating, and our exercise, these things, right? So that's a little bit of an overview about a health journal, although of course we could do this with anything, right? So I hope that sort of gives a bit of an overview for today. I'll do another one though, and I'll start to explain some of the other things that we can do, because there is ways to vision forward. There's ways to, again, the specific way of breaking these agreements. What else is there? Just affirmations, a way of affirming what's possible for us, not what is, because then that doesn't resonate, but what's possible. So there's some different things we can do. So I'll turn this one off for now, and then I'll do another one later. Thanks. Bless you.